drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and it's so good to see all of you. I hope you all are doing well today. Today, I want to talk about the movie The Color Purple. The Color Purple is apparently a blockbuster hit. The movie has done really, really well at the box office. Color Purple is setting records right now. In case you haven't seen the latest numbers, they literally had the second largest Christmas opening of all time and the largest Christmas opening since 2009. Literally, this movie has been breaking records, and I don't know if how the money this time compares to the money back in 1982, but the money's really strong. And it wasn't a surprise to me. I can get a sense of what films are going to be hits and which ones are not based on just how people react to it. And what I'm going to do is kind of break down for you a few reasons why I knew for a fact Color Purple was going to be a smash. Also, why I know Warner Brothers is jumping up and down with all the money that they're making, and it's really interesting in terms of really sort of assessing this movie, which was very well done, by the way. I went to go see it. I had to go see it. Honestly, it wasn't my choice. I went to go see it because I have a wife and a mother and two mother-in-law and two daughters that I love and respect immensely, and I'm their bonus dad, and I love being their bonus dad. And I said, okay, you know what? You all want to go see Color Purple? I will go with you, even though I know it's not my type of movie because I saw the original. So anyway, as we come in, do me a favor, give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, I want to make sure I do a quick microphone check, and also don't forget this podcast is on Spotify. So if you go to Spotify, look up my name, Boyce Watkins. You can find the podcast there as well. And so I want to say good morning to all the B1 family and everybody else. All right, so let's jump into this. Okay, so some of you may think the movie was wonderful, some of you think it was terrible. I'm not really here to tell you what to think one way or the other. I'm gonna say that the movie was not a movie that had people like me in mind. I was definitely not the target demographic of this film. That's what I'll say about Color Purple. At the same time, I'm not here to crap all over the movie either. I'm not really trying. It doesn't interest me to sit around and talk about how terrible it was. My goal is just to kind of be honest and say, okay, every movie isn't made for everybody, right? Every movie isn't made for every type of demographic. Color Purple clearly was made for people. You know, it was made. You would say it was made for women, but I don't even think it was made for all women, right? I don't even think it was made for all women. It was made for women that have a certain experience, they can relate to a certain experience as it pertains to men, right? Alice Walker, Oprah Winfrey, a lot of women in that demographic, unfortunately, have had some really tough experiences when it comes to men. They just, it's as far as like when you talk about winning the lottery for crappy, abusive, horrible men in your life, they won that lottery. They won that toxicity lottery. Because we do know that there are men out there that do the things that happen in The Color Purple. We know these things, right? And I personally think that it's important to know these stories. For example, the Robin Simpson. You guys have heard me talk about Robin Simpson, the sister in Houston who was part of the B1 family, who was just murdered last week by her husband. 2 weeks ago, he literally stabbed her. I want to say 100 times, and we're still looking into that because the police there appears to be some police errors that I think the family should sue over, but then again we'll figure that out later on. At the same time though, I think it's very important for all of us to understand that these stories have to be told. You cannot on any level allow the abuse of women to just sort of go unchecked and undiscussed and undealt with in our community. Give me a yes if you agree. Give me a yes if you are in that camp that can hear me when I say that we got to kind of deal with this massive disrespect of women that does exist in our community in some spaces. Like, because I want to make that 100% clear, because I don't want it to come off like my goal is to just crap all over this movie. I'm not trying to crap all over it. And the other thing about this movie is, I'm going to say this too. um One of the things I can tell you is that if you ever want to really challenge yourself mentally, you guys know I'm a college professor and I like things that challenge us to think. So I would encourage you to do this. If you ever want to make yourself into a smarter person, develop yourself psychologically, try to start empathizing with other people's perspective, right? Like try to sit down with somebody you completely disagree with, talk to somebody who has a point of view that doesn't make any sense to you, talk to somebody who has a completely different experience from you, and then and try to hear that person out, try to hear and really empathize and understand and appreciate and respect what they're where they're coming from. And that doesn't mean you have to let go of your point of view. That just means you're going to understand the world a little bit better. So when I went to see The Color Purple, I said, okay, let me just check out this narrative. I saw the original movie. I figured it would be similar. I kind of knew what to expect. I knew that the relationship between Celie and Suge would probably go back into that whole, the whole lesbian thing. Because again, the Hollywood agenda is real. That's kind of what Hollywood does. And I knew they would probably take it deeper, right? They probably have them have like a big kiss on camera and all these other things, right? And that does reflect a real experience. There are real, gay people exist, right? It happens, right? I have people that are in my family that are from the LGBT community, so I respect that. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about the movie, though. First off, let's talk about the money part. Warner Brothers made a crap ton of money off this movie. This is not a black movie. The Color Purple is not a black movie. I know some of y'all think it's a black movie because it has black people in it, and I think it's very important that we make the distinction that a movie with black actors is not a black movie. And that's very important because this rope-a-dope that consistently gets pulled on you, where you say, "Hey, y'all, we got to go see this movie." You ever see when a movie comes out and people feel like it's like it's almost like a religious experience, like they have to go see it, like it's a homework assignment. Like if I miss the Black Panther movie, I'm gonna get in trouble. Like people really get like that. Like they're like, "Oh, we make it into a family event," and I understand that, but I personally think y'all got to really process this, right? When movies like this do well, this is not a payday for the black community. This is not a big win for black people. It's not. It's not. It's a win for Hollywood. It's a win for Warner Brothers. And I have the students in the Black Business School. We all read this book called "How An Empire of Their Own: How the Jews Invented Hollywood." And it's not anti-Semitic. It's actually pro-Jewish in a way, in the sense of giving respect to the individuals that created all these Hollywood studios. And I respect it immensely. Y'all have heard me talk about it. I have nothing against people that build for their own community. I just want our community to build for our community, right? Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. I want us building for us the same way other people build for themselves, and the way we build for them. And here's where I think racial inequality pops up its ugly head. We will scramble and run and sprint to go see a movie made by another community that has us in it. Now, let me ask you this: if a black studio made a movie with Jewish people in it, do you think the Jewish community would all clamor to go see this movie? Do you think they'd be like, "Oh my God, Mazel Tov, we got to go, we got to go see it. This is our culture. This is our culture." Do you think that the Jewish community would let you do that? Do you think that if you made a movie with Chinese people, and do you think if a black filmmaker with black money at a black studio made a movie specifically for Chinese people, do you think the Chinese people would just be like, "Oh yeah, we got to go see it"? Or do you think that they would have some critical thinking in terms of who actually is making money from this movie? I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, because you do actually have some black directors that make movies for white people, and but they tend to be funded by white owned studios, right? Do you really think that would happen? No, we don't have reciprocity in our society, right? The things that we're expected to do for other people are things that other people will never do for us. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? The things that we're expected to do for others, we're expected to show up, show out, pay big, drop money, drop a dime, drop a nickel, drop a quarter, drop every penny in your bank account to go see somebody's movie. But nobody does that when we create businesses in our community, right? And I personally think that that's something we have to think about, because this is where your wealth is going. This is why black wealth keeps dropping, right? So again, I'm not saying that you are a fool for going to see The Color Purple. I know a lot of you went to go see it. And here's the reality. Here's the truth about it. Some of y'all may not like this part, but it was a good movie, actually. If you can get past the politics of it, and the agendas, and the poor messaging regarding what black men represent, if you can get past all of that, you know what I saw in this movie? I saw a lot of really talented actors and actresses singing and dancing their ass off, like doing their thing. I didn't know Taraji could sing like that. I Fantasia. I mean, come on, it's Fantasia. We know what Fantasia can do. I saw some other actors and actresses that I didn't know had all that talent, and I found myself entertained. Actually, I allowed myself to be entertained by this movie. At the same time, there has to be a space for me to also not shut my brain off. I have to have critical analysis of this. And so one of the things that does concern me about the movie though is when you have these really poorly shaped narratives of the relationship between black men and black women that are just not reflective of reality, right? The movie Color Purple, people will always sort of try to shape this as, oh, this is the relationship between the black man and black woman. This is the story of the black woman in America, blah, blah, blah. That's BS. That's some BS. That ain't no story of the black man and black woman in America. No, it's not. That is a story of the feminist lesbian community and their relationship with toxic black men. Right. That's what it is. It's the experiences of the Alice Walkers, of the Oprah Winfreys, because they went through terrible experiences with terrible men. And I went to the theater. We took our son. I'm his bonus dad. I'm that you would know in a second I wasn't his biological dad because he's 6'9", right? He's 6'9". He's very smart. He's very handsome. He's got home training. He's a good kid. And neither one of us identified with any man in that movie. Neither one of us, not me, not him, and not his biological father. His biological father is a wonderful guy. We work together to raise and to mentor him and to teach him things. We teach him little basic things that every man should know, like you never put your hands on a woman ever for any reason whatsoever. You just don't. I don't believe that you should do, even if she hits you first. I don't think that's appropriate. We talk about not engaging in the kinds of behavior that these men exhibited in this film. So the reality is that there's a dual reality of being black in America, right? We know that men like this exist, but the thing about Hollywood that's fascinating, and the reason that this movie is it's sort of a multi-million-dollar toxicity fest is because it is this partnership, this very awkward partnership between black feminists and white men to make a film, to use their millions, right? Working together, they have millions of dollars that black men like me don't have. We don't have access to billion-dollar, studios that can make movies telling our story, right? I got a story. How many of y'all, seriously, how many of y'all have a story about a black woman that hurt your feelings? How many of y'all have a story about black women that did horrible things to you? How many of y'all could sit here and tell stories about your ex, your baby mama, your friend, or some woman that hit you, abused you, mistreated you, lied to you, hurt your feelings, destroyed, stepped on your heart? How many of you could you literally, seriously, like imagine if we made like a Waiting to Exhale type movie with black men. Let's say I got together with the Passport Brothers and we had $1 billion and said, okay, let's tell our story. And then people be like, well, that's not right. You're misportraying black women. And then we could come back and say, well, no, that's our story, though. That's our story. And we have a right to tell our story. That's our truth. We have a right to tell our truth, right? That's bullshit. That ain't right. That ain't right. Seriously. So the same way it would be patently unfair for me to tell a narrative, to use some billion-dollar institution to partner with white women. Imagine if the institution is run by white women, and white women said, we want to get together the Passport Brothers and make a movie about how crappy black men are and about how horrible you're being treated by your women. What do y'all think? Y'all think that would fly? You think that would be, it would be a hit? It would definitely be a hit. Because everybody wants to believe black women are ratchet, crazy, evil, and despicable, and unattractive, and uninteresting, and undesirable in every way. Like everyone wants to believe that y'all a bunch of hoochie mamas, welfare queens, thotty thoughts. Like seriously, that's what people believe about black women. And these narratives, if somebody had $1 billion and said, or a multi-billion-dollar studio like Warner Brothers and said, let's go find some black men and let's tell their story about how they're being abused by these women. We're gonna help these men, right? That would be some BS. Y'all know it will be some BS. So if it's BS, if we do it as men, then why can't I call BS when we talk about Color Purple? I am not against Color Purple. I'm not against the quality of the film. I thought the film was well done. I really do. I told you, I allowed myself to be entertained. I allowed myself to laugh. You told Harpo to beat me, right? Like all that. Like I get all that, right? I totally get it. I felt for the characters, Stantasia, man, oh my God, what a great actress. Did a wonderful job. Really had a coming out party in this movie. So good, so good, so good. But at the same time, I think it's really important that we take a moment to say that even as we enjoy these films, we must take a moment to understand what subtle messages are being sent by Hollywood about the state of black men, black women, and black relationships. We have to do that. We have to do that. And just understand this: Hollywood, for all of its brilliance and creativity, and I give credit to that. I really do. I told you, I read that whole book, How the Jews Invented Hollywood. I'm fascinated by it because I respect, the intensity and the commitment that they had to build these institutions. But just understand this too: it's full of propaganda. The propaganda is everywhere. In fact, you see it right now. Look around you. Look at what's happening in the Middle East, right? With Israel and Palestine, the BS in the Middle East. For every one Israeli you kill, we're gonna kill 20 of y'all, right? And it's gonna be women and children, right? I think 1,600 people got killed on one side, over 20,000 get killed on the other. And anybody who speaks up against it, all the media is calling that anti-Semitism, right? All this is the use of money, power, and media to create narratives that happen to work in your favor. It's propaganda. That's the point. So Hollywood is a place of propaganda. So the propaganda from the movie The Color Purple that makes it very dangerous is is that we don't need more fuel on the fire when it comes to the divide between black men and black women. Trillions of dollars in black wealth is destroyed every generation, largely because you can't even keep your families together. I'm going to agree with Dr. Umar Johnson the other day, who made a very good point about the fact that when you are choosing to abandon each other, you are giving your wealth to other people. Now you are, and now here's what makes me the asshole. This is why I don't have any friends. But at the same time, I did challenge Umar and said, well, okay, if black women are that important to you, show me your wife. Show me a woman that you're committed to, because I don't see you building a family or anything. I see you going around the world and sleeping with different women and meeting lots of girls everywhere, and that's fine. But I don't necessarily know if people, none of us is beyond criticism. None of us is beyond accountability for our personal choices. So that's what makes that conversation complicated, right? Because nobody's innocent in this game. Nobody gets out alive. Nobody gets out unscathed. That's my point. When it comes to the breakdown of the black community and the black family, all of us are responsible on some level. All of us play some part in this. And then not only are we playing a part in this internally, but there are external factors that are cheering it on. There are external variables. There are people with billion-dollar bank accounts that are saying, that's right. Get rid of that man. Men are terrible. Get rid of those black women. Black women are garbage. Go get you a passport. Go to another country, because your women, I mean, they just welfare queens and hoochie mamas and gold diggers. Why would you want a black woman? Right. And the same thing is true with the men. Like, look at your men, look at their toxic behavior. In fact, I'm gonna show you all something that is that reflects exactly what I'm talking about. And before I do that, though, could you do me a favor? Please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, if you want to, I send out profit alerts. Because I want you to build your wealth. I'm a finance professor. You guys know this. I send out profit alerts. If you would like to get those sent to you via text, just text the word stock to 89748. Text stock to 89748. I have a new book out also called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, and another book called Financial Lovemaking. If you'd like to take a look at those books, you can go to boycewatkins.com, or you can go to drboycebooks.com. So let me show you guys something that really reflects what I was saying earlier. Okay, so remember we were saying that a lot of people sort of justify some of the imagery and the energy of Color Purple by saying, look, this is just, this is their story. Women have the right to tell their story and whatever, right? And it's hard to argue against that. I told you, I get that, but let me tell you another way this argument has been made that was also, in my view, inappropriate. Is anybody in here old enough to remember when hip hop suddenly transformed in the 1990s, and it went from a message of empowerment and elevation of the black community, and it turned into a message of bitches and hoes and women ain't shit. Like, literally, Snoop Dogg had a song where he said something like it used the B word, and I'm gonna try not to cuss too much because it's YouTube and you get in trouble for that, but it was like, itches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Anybody remember that song? Like, there's songs like that literally where it was like, it just suddenly became very disrespectful toward black women. Like, literally every woman was a bee and whatever and a hoe and all this other. And then it got just to where people got used to it. And then now we got a whole generation of kids that literally just think that that's par for the course. They think that that's what you're supposed to call a woman. And I want you to remember this. I don't know if everybody remembers this image. You got to be a real hip hop head to remember this. Do y'all remember in like 1999, Snoop Dogg came to an award show and he had a pimp with him. The pimp's name is Bishop Magic Don Juan, and Bishop Magic Don Juan was basically like a mascot for him, because the goal was the race to the bottom. The goal was to see who could be the most disrespectful toward women, right? Just like you control these hoes and whatever, right? That was the whole mindset. So you had guys, unfortunately, in my generation, who were trained by the previous generation to look up to the pimps and the black exploitation culture, which again was marketed by Hollywood. Hollywood is typically the culprit in a lot of this. Hollywood started making these, Mac pimp player hustler movies in the 70s. And this was, and they did stuff like that before, but in the 70s black exploitation genre was, to me, kind of, it's similar to what you see in The Color Purple, just on just when the genders are just different, right? So they're making all these black exploitation movies. They're not making love stories. They're not making stories about black men and black women elevating each other and being together. They're making stories about, your bitch chose me, right? And so my father's generation, he said in his 20s that everybody wanted to be like the pimps. Anybody remember that? Anybody got a daddy like that who maybe used to be a cool guy and he dressed like a pimp? He'd have the hat on and or maybe some kind of fur coat or whatever, right? So Snoop Dogg was the next generation. At that point, he's the young guy imitating the OGs who are telling him that women are not to be respected. So Snoop's most famous line, what was his most famous line? What was the line? 50 Cent's most famous line was, "I got shot 9 times." That's what he built a $1 billion career off of, that one line. "I got shot 9 times." What was Snoop's most famous line that he repeated as much as possible, definitely through the 90s and even into the 2000s? "We don't love them hoes." Right? "We don't love them hoes." Right? And what that basically said is that, women are B's and H's, and we don't have no respect for them. And that's how we prove our masculinity. And so here's the thing. When they asked, this goes back, I promise you, I'm taking this full circle. Let me know if you're still following this, because I want to connect this to the argument that I hear a lot of feminists make when they justify the way men are presented in The Color Purple. So what they'll say is that, well, this is women's story. This is just our story. Everybody has a right to tell their story. Okay, cool. Not everybody's going to get $1 billion company to help them tell their story, but everybody has a story, right? Okay, cool. But do you know that when they asked Snoop and some other guys, like, "Hey, why do you say this about women? Why do you always portray women in this way?" You know what he said? Ice-T said this too. They said, "Well, we're just telling our story." They said, "We're not talking about all women. We're talking about the women that we meet. We're talking about the women we see in the strip club. We're talking about the gold diggers and the hoes and the groupies and that we run into." Y'all remember that? And so here's Snoop at an award show. He's got 2 women on a leash. Y'all see the leash? Y'all see that in the picture? You got dog. They got, if you listen on Spotify, you won't see it, but literally he's got 2 women on a dog collar because he's Snoop Dogg. And it's basically like, just disrespecting women, right? So my point is to say that if you're okay with black feminists partnering with white men with lots of money to portray an image of the black man that is toxic, abusive, and dysfunctional, then you're also okay with black men, thuggish black men partnering with the same white people who make these movies and presenting images of black women as hoes and thoughts and gold diggers. Seriously, you're okay with that. And this is, so the common factor is, it's money. See, this is why, for those of you that ever wonder, like, well, why did this guy's weird? Boyce, he's supposed to be a finance guy, and he talks about, why is he talking about The Color Purple? Why is he talking about hip hop? Because it's about the damn money. Like Deion Sanders said, "Must be the money," right? That song defines a big percentage of what I talk about on this podcast. Whenever I see weird stuff happening, I'm like, oh, it must be the money. Well, guess who has a PhD in money? How many of us have a doctorate in money? Me, I do. I've written books on financial psychology and economic culture. Oh, I taught finance since 1993, right? So my point is to say that this is about the money. This is about the money. It ain't about whether or not your story is valid. Everybody got a damn valid story. The question is, are you in a position where you can get those $1 billion white folks at Paramount Pictures to give you $100 million to tell your damn story? That's the differential. I got a story. How many of you in here? Give me a guess if you got a story. Everybody in here got a damn story. You really think I got a story? You know, my story is that back when I was 22 years old, I met the most beautiful woman in the world, and I didn't meet her in the club. I met her in the library, and we were friends for a really long time. And I got a chance to marry the woman of my dreams and fulfill all my goals and dreams and get a doctorate and teach at Syracuse. And then my friend got murdered. I got a story too. How many of y'all think Paramount Pictures will ever give me $100 million to tell my story? Intelligent Black people have stories too. Healthy, non-toxic, non-dysfunctional Black people, we got a story too. But Hollywood ain't funding your story. Well, why? Well, because your story is not riddled with all of the psychological STDs that we pass to each other. Your story is not riddled with trauma. Your story is not riddled with stereotypical high-level toxicity and dysfunction that those white folks in Hollywood love to see. They don't want to see no Black story about Black people loving each other. They want to see you hating each other. They don't want to see you happy. They want to see you sad. They don't want to see you you telling about all the great things that have happened in your life. They want you talking about the trauma and the tragedy. They want you disrespecting each other. They want you fighting. That's where the whole reality TV genre comes from. That's why Christian and Blueface, two of the most dysfunctional people ever, the new Bobby and Whitney, two people that probably I would be shocked if either one of them lives past the age of 40. That's why they are celebrities. But you're not, because you went to therapy and you healed and you educated yourself and you want to be safe, happy, and comfortable, and you want to create a space where your children don't have to go through what you went through. Oh, well, you're boring. You ain't keeping it real. You ain't really Black. That's not a Black story. If you're a Black woman and you didn't get raped by your daddy and beaten by your uncle and stabbed by your brother, then that's not a story that they want to hear. Color Purple, all it is, and it's not a terrible movie. I'm gonna tell you, it's a great. I mean, the talent was extraordinary. This has nothing to do with the talent, nothing to do with the quality of the storytelling. The reality is that this was a really jacked up story. Like, this lady Steely, she got pregnant by a daddy like 2-3 times. Her daddy's daddy was a terrible person. Her babies were taken away from her. Then she goes and lives with Mr. who beats her ass every day and rapes her because he wants to marry a 9-year-old. And then, and Mr.'s daddy is like, you ain't beating these hoes enough. You need to whoop their ass more. And so regular guys like me are watching this movie like, holy shit, these are some terrible dudes. You know, and it doesn't mean terrible dudes don't exist. They are real. A lot of us know terrible people. But is this all you got? Like, this is, and then you're like, well, who's making this movie? Well, okay, Alice Walker, Oprah Winfrey, women that have dealt with these terrible kinds of men. That might be a real narrative for them, for sure. But that's also a dysfunctional narrative that requires significant healing. And I don't really need you doing therapy in a movie theater with $100 million film. I don't know if you're adding value to the Black experience by telling the story in this way. And then also your solutions are nothing more than trauma responses. Again, I got to be careful. My wife is the real therapist. I'm only an armchair therapist. I just happen to be married to one, but I love her and I listen to her. So I'm learning a couple things. And you should get a spouse that you can learn from, by the way. That's why I married my wife, because she teaches me things. But it's a trauma response. It's a trauma response. What was if you look at the main three female characters that stood out to me were Celie, the lady who got pregnant by daddy 2-3 times, had her babies taken away, was got the shit beat out of her by Mr., and eventually fell in love with Suge Avery. That was character number 2. Suge Avery was the woman who was, I guess she was a city girl, 304. You know, she kind of got out and did what she wanted to do. Of course, that's admirable. It would be wrong for me to criticize that, because that would be slut shaming. And then there was Sophia. Sophia was married to Harpo, the son of Mr. And Sophia was the person who would punch somebody in the face at the drop of a hat. who got mad because Harpo gave her cold tea and she said, "What the hell is this?" and threw it in the water. And then when Harpo made the mistake of putting his hands on Sophia, which he should not have done, we all rejoiced in watching Sophia get together with all her female friends and take away Harpo's baby and then break up the family, right? Like we cheer for that, right? We see that as like, oh, that's a wonderful thing. What's interesting to me, here's the thing that's interesting. Again, I'm not judging nobody's relationship. Everybody's relationship is different. But it's interesting that when a woman decides that she doesn't want to be with her man anymore and walks away and takes away his kids and he's sitting there traumatized because he's lost his children, nobody really empathizes with that trauma. But what's also interesting is that if a man decides that a woman is getting on his nerves and she's being too much or she's not being appropriate or she's mistreating him and he walks away, and let's say he walked away and he took her children, that would be seen as a terrible man. Like that would not be seen as appropriate behavior. And then also what's interesting is that one challenge that I would give to the feminists in the room is I really don't hear a lot of empathy and concern for children when you talk about the proven. This is proven. There's many studies that document the horrific psychological effects on kids when their families break up. Right. You know, we hear people talk about, well, I had to get divorced because I needed to find my truth or find myself or find my peace or find my happiness or whatever, or get myself into a better situation. I get that. But I don't really hear a lot of conversation about the kids. In fact, if you hear a woman or a man say, you know, I wasn't 100% happy, but I stayed together for the kids, a lot of people think that that's absolutely stupid. And I don't think there's anything wrong with anybody who makes sacrifices for their children. I think sacrifices for your children kind of insulate and protect them from all the bullshit that you're personally dealing with. And I think our job as adults is to protect the children. There are so many kids in our neighborhood right now that come to our house largely because their parents are fighting in the street and mama threw out daddy's stuff in the front yard and the 16-year-old had to step over her daddy's belongings in the front yard on her way to school. I don't think we understand how harmful that is to kids. I don't think we even care. I really don't. I really don't think we care. I can think of a couple of examples of boys that lost their father when they were 12 or 13 and ended up on drugs. One lady told me that her son was on dope so bad that when he was 18, she had to literally move away and hide from him because she thought he would find her and steal her money. Right. So again, I'm not here to judge anybody's relationships. What I am here to say is that whatever we're doing, it ain't working. Whatever these solutions are, right? The color purple solutions of, you know, okay, men are bad. We need to get away from men. We either need to go date women or we need to kick men in their asses the way they kick us in our asses, or we need to break up the family and take the kids with us. I don't think any of those solutions necessarily work for a community that's trying to be strong. I just don't. I don't think that any of that. Like I don't see when I look at I don't blame Seeley for wanting to get away from that guy, Mister, because Mister was a bastard, right? Who would want to be married to a guy like that? It was terrible. But I really kind of wonder if there's a better way to kind of think about these things as opposed to just simply saying, you know, let's make it into a war. Right. Let's get revenge on these motherfuckers. Let's make them suffer the way they make us suffer so that we'll all be miserable. We'll all suffer. Right. I don't know if that's the solution. Like, I don't know. I know that when I get hurt by Black women, I might get away from a certain woman, but I don't know if I go through life saying I want to make her suffer the way she made me suffer. I want her in pain so that I'm in pain because I'm in pain. I've never seen a situation where getting revenge on another person made your situation better. Right. I'm not telling you how to handle your situation, but I am trying to say to you that I encourage anybody that watches these movies that's cheering and saying, yeah, that's right, we got that son of a bitch. Maybe ask yourself if there's a healthier way to kind of approach things. I personally don't think that toxic emotions like revenge or you know, the objective of revenge is ever healthy. I don't think the revenge makes you feel better. It might make you feel even, but you don't feel better. And then also I think even emotions like jealousy, jealousy just doesn't do much for you. So one of my goals when I was in my early 30s actually was to eradicate jealousy from my system as much as possible. It's still there, right? It still happens, right? We all feel it. But I remember noticing, I said, you know, when I'm a jealous man, I'm not a good man. When I'm a jealous man, I'm not an appealing man. When I'm a jealous man, I'm an insecure man. There's nothing interesting about a man who is unappealing and insecure and just an ugly human being. So I said, I think I'm better off in life if I can alleviate as much jealousy as possible. And it does work. It really does work. But it takes work, right? It takes work. So what I would encourage anybody to do is, as you watch the movie and you enjoy it, also be willing to kind of point out the fact that some of this stuff ain't right. That some of this stuff, this idea of these women getting together, these women who've been traumatized, who really need therapy and everything else, getting together with white men who give them hundreds of millions of dollars to do their therapy on the screen, and to just scream and holler and get revenge on the men who hurt them. That's a power play. That's a gender war. That's a like, and if you look at their lives, look at Oprah's life. I mean, where does Oprah really have anything in her life that really resembles, the harmony, beauty, and productivity of a full family? She doesn't. She's the feminist who might be probably gay. I'm gonna honestly, I think the gay mafia is real. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, but it exists. A lot of people are gay. And she's had this thing with Stedman for a really long time, but there's nothing sort of there that bears fruit in terms of, this is my spouse, these are our children, this is our legacy, this is what we've sort of developed. And again, it's not to be critical of Oprah, it's to say that is that how you want to go through life? I don't know. I really don't know. I personally think that if you're a sort of a black person that says, I want to meet a good woman, I want to have kids with her, and I want us to have a healthy family where we don't pass down generational curses, where everybody is financially secure, emotionally secure, and well loved and protected in this space, movies like Color Purple don't do any of that. And it's not, and it's really kind of a pattern. If you remember, anybody remember when Tyler Perry made that horrible movie Precious, where they claimed, again, some white guy gave him a bunch of money to go and tell their story, quote unquote, and the story was like the most depressing shit you've ever seen. Like it was like traumatic to sit through that movie. And there was actually the scene, I don't know if it was Precious or not. I get the movies mixed up. That's right, because he did another one. What was it? Something about rainbows for the black girl who wants to jump out of a window or something. You know what I'm talking about? I remember what it was called, but literally there was that scene with Michael Ealy where he takes the two kids and the lady's like begging him and screaming like, please don't hurt my children, and he throws the kids out the window. Anybody remember that? Right? Like it's kind of like you have people in Hollywood that have gone through shit, just horrible versions of hell. And for some reason, honestly, I think it's because a lot of them are gay. They get accepted into Hollywood, right? Hollywood really embraces black people from the LGBT community. They really do. And then they get all this money and they get a big microphone to be able to tell these stories that are not at all reflective of the black experience for most people. Lee Daniels, I mentioned when Lee Daniels had his show Empire, when he created the show Empire, I remember Don Lemon was furious with me. He went, Don Lemon, I did a whole analysis of it. I said Lee Daniels is not a person that deserves a microphone. He needs therapy. Lee Daniels, I read his whole bio. I saw his story. This man is sick. And but yet you're giving him, tens of millions of dollars to puke his mental illness onto a screen on a show called Empire. And I guess Don Lemon was upset about it. And so Don goes to the Tom Joyner morning show and just spends the whole time attacking me because what I said was wrong. But I don't think there's anything wrong with what I said. I stand by every single word. And it really is interesting because it makes me think about also, even in hip hop, when you have a lot of really mentally unwell black people who are able to serve the masses in the music industry or the movie industry in a certain level, that their mental health issues get sort of pushed under the rug, or perhaps even amplified through their creative expression. And then nobody helps them. And next thing you know, that person's dead. For example, Richard Pryor, one of the greatest comedians of all time, funniest guy ever, was clearly fucked up. Went through some horrible stuff as a kid, JoJo dancer, like everything dysfunctional about his upbringing. So Richard goes out to California and he's a drug addict, right? And there are people there like Jim Brown that wanted to help Richard. Jim Brown used to fight with Richard because he would try to get him away from the drugs, and Richard just avoided Jim. And so Richard Pryor ends up with this debilitating illness and eventually dying. And no one really sort of stepped in to stop any of that because he was making so much money for them. Another example, R. Kelly. Most of you knew, give me a yes if you knew R. Kelly was crazy and sick back around 2002. Most of us knew back when Aaliyah was alive. We knew R. Kelly wasn't right. We knew R. Kelly needed help. Farrakhan, a lot of people knew R. Kelly needed help. But for some reason, all that gets ignored because R. Kelly was a cash machine for the music industry. So instead of getting him the help that he needed, they just enabled his mental illness. They would feed the beast. They would feed the demons. I'm from Chicago. I know the real deal. I know about parents delivering their little girls to that man. Stop acting like he did all this in a vacuum. He didn't do this in a vacuum. This man was world famous. He had lots of famous friends who hung out with him on many occasions, and we're getting into the same stuff. I have no idea why we somehow think that R. Kelly was sitting there all by himself doing all this stuff with nobody around him. No, when he's in the studio, there's other dudes around, there's other people around, there's women around, there's people delivering women. There's all this stuff happens. Why? Well, because we kind of think that that this celebrity status means that anything goes for you. You can have whatever you want. And so effectively, it became a deal with the devil for R. Kelly, because now you see where he is. You see this poor guy is in jail on suicide watch, when really somebody that could have gotten in his ear could have sat down and helped him. I could have helped R. Kelly. I saw the mental illness. If I could have gotten in his ear, I would have said, come on, man, like forget all the money, forget all the fame, forget all that nonsense. Let's get you better, because you're going to hurt somebody and you're going to hurt yourself. That's more important than you going to making money for these white folks. I could keep going down the list. We could talk about DMX. We could talk about Whitney Houston. And it's happening in real time. Again, I mentioned the Blueface Christian rock, but all Blueface and Christian rock, if you don't know them, just look them up. They're really interesting. All they are is the new Bobby Whitney. And a lot of y'all saw how the Bobby Whitney story ended. We knew how it was going to end as it was happening. Tupac got killed because the music industry was making money feeding into this East Coast, West Coast chaos that was going to get somebody hurt. So Tupac, again, being caught in the matrix of trying to please, whoever is selling these records, right? It's Suge Knight, but Suge Knight, he was being funded by somebody, right? He was part of a bigger record label, right? So Tupac gets out here trying to, sell more records and all that, not thinking about wellness, not thinking about his mental or physical health, not thinking about the consequences of these decisions. Next thing you know, he's making Hit 'Em Up, and then he's dead a couple weeks later, a few weeks later, or whatever, right? I personally think that that Hollywood and entertainment and the music industry are just horrifically bad for the Black community. I think that we need to reassess our obsession with sending our children away to go to Hollywood so they can get molested by these crazy people, or getting into situations that are going to ruin their lives. I have a cousin who died from a drug overdose about maybe 6 months ago. And I remember how excited the family was when this cousin, who could sing very well at church, the family was very excited because he got to go on the road with a very famous singing group back in the 1980s. And they thought that this was going to be his ticket to fame and fortune, when really it was a ticket to a drug addiction. And he never, ever got over the drug addiction, because when you introduce cocaine to a 14 or 15-year-old, it's when their brain is not even fully developed, that person is going to have problems for the rest of their life. It's cocaine's a hell of a drug. So here in his late 40s, early 50s, he dies from a drug overdose. Right. So I would just really say that when I look at these movies and I see what they're kind of doing to us with their propaganda, I think it has to stop. I think that the key is really for us to reassess what we're supporting, what we believe in. Again, I'm not judging you if you went to go see Color Purple. Again, I told you it's tempting and it's tough because it's a good movie, and these are legitimate stories that can be told. But there are so many other stories that can be told, and the stories that get told affect the behavior of the people who are consuming these stories. Stop acting like entertainment doesn't make a difference in the psyches of Black people. It makes a huge difference. Every study says it does. Every study says Black people look up to celebrities. Every study says that our behavior is affected by what we see on TV. When Bill Cosby was put in a different world on TV, he did that because he knew the impact of media. He studied in his doctoral thesis about how imagery on television affects the minds of Black youth. That's why he made Fat Albert. That was his doctoral dissertation project. That's why he made A Different World. HBCU enrollment skyrocketed when A Different World came on. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. So why are you sitting here trying to tell me that entertainment does not matter? It makes a huge difference. When my daddy told me that all his friends wanted to imitate the pimps on screen, Well, that's more evidence. How much evidence do you need to know that media affects the way people see the world? The Jewish community knows this very well. That's why they worked so hard to build Hollywood, because they knew that Hitler used propaganda to paint them in a certain way, and it ended up leading to them getting killed. So, black people, you are affected in the same way. They portray you in a certain way. They portray you as less than human. They portray the black man as a piece of garbage and as a dirtbag and as a violent thug criminal. And then when your son is pulled over by the cops, pop, 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 they ready to shoot your son down, because in their head, their image of the black man is that of somebody who's going to do them harm or do something violent. That's what happens. It's all connected. Or your son goes before a jury of his so-called peers, which is really just a bunch of white people, and they decide that your son is going to be guilty, even though a white woman got away with the same crime. It's because of the imagery that's portrayed of him. The same people in this jury listen to gangster rap music with men rapping about murdering and raping and killing and stealing and all this other stuff. So it's very easy for them to think that your son, because he got dreadlocks like Lil Wayne, it's easy for them to think that your son that's got dreads and tattoos is also a killer and a crook. So stop that. Stop that nonsense acting like media doesn't matter. It makes a huge difference. So what I would say, if I was talking to the creators of The Color Purple right now, you know what I would say to them? I would say, that was a great movie. You are so talented. You are so smart. Taraji, I think you were awesome. You were great. I heard what you were saying, where you were complaining about how you're not getting paid enough money. And I'm just gonna say to you that that doesn't make any sense to me, because you have a billion-dollar brand. I personally think that it's time for you to mature economically, and for you to get into a space where you can help shape the narratives, as opposed to being subjective to the narratives or the pay structure that exists within this institution called Hollywood. I encourage you to go read this book, How the Jews Invented Hollywood, and understand that you have an opportunity to plant the seeds to develop an infrastructure that will allow the next generation to avoid the the disappointment and the pain that you've experienced yourself as an actress, or whatever, the oppression, whatever it is that you're feeling right now. You can protect the next generation, not by begging white men to give them more opportunities, but by creating opportunities that are controlled by us. That's what you do. White Hollywood was built. Somebody built that. Somebody sacrificed to build that. What are we sacrificing to build? What are we creating for ourselves? And I personally think that's a challenge for us. So really, as much as we can get mad at white folks for what they do, I'm not even really mad at them. I'm really kind of looking at us and saying, okay, what we gonna do about it? Whining about it ain't gonna fix it. Having these millionaire celebrities complaining about how much money they're getting paid, that was just baffling to me. I just didn't understand that. I was on the phone last night with a rapper friend that I just respect so much, named D1. And D1, I've had so much admiration for him, because he's one of the few rappers I've ever known who was able to turn down a deal from Cash Money Records. Lil Wayne's record label offered him a deal. They begged him to join the label. He said, I don't want to do that. And it was because it did not fit right with his soul. He didn't want to be a part of whatever they got going on over there. And so that's one of the reasons D and I have been friends for many years, and I respect him so much. And what's really great now is that D is helping to change the hip hop music industry. He's helping to really shift those narratives. And so we talked about what that means, the heavy lifting, what it means to really have to build the infrastructure to allow your message to be heard as much as everybody else. And it comes down to things like capital, the ability to accumulate capital to be able to set up distribution channels and production processes and monetization methodologies that will allow you to kind of do your thing without worrying about what Hollywood will or won't allow you to do. Like this idea that we somehow feel like other people give us permission to do things. That's language of a child. That's language of a child. I don't want to be a child anymore at all. I was a child a long time ago. I want to be a grown ass man. So I'm not here to beg for permission. I'm here to ask me to let anybody ask anybody to let me do anything. I want to choose what I want to do, right? But at the end of the day, freedom and money and power are all cousins. They're all connected. It's hard to have freedom and power without money. It's hard to have money and freedom without power. It's hard to have power and money without freedom, right? If you pull those three things together, they're all connected. If you try to have freedom and money, or freedom and power, and you don't have money and you don't have capital, then you're probably not going to be successful. So get your money right. Understand your money. Okay. So anyway, that's it. I don't have anything else to say. Again, I want to make it 100% clear. that it's going to sound so hypocritical when I say that The Color Purple actually was a good movie, well executed. I just didn't like the narrative. And don't you dare associate black men like me with the black men on that screen. We ain't got nothing to do with each other. That is not a black story. That is a feminist lesbian story about their experiences with toxic and abusive men. And I encourage anybody who has those stories to, number one, avoid men like that, pick better men for your life. And number two, get the help you need, heal. Because one thing that's interesting about this movie too, that I think you should pay attention to, is that traumatized black people tend to traumatize other black people, right? So when somebody does you wrong and you're seeking revenge, you end up doing somebody else wrong. And usually the person you get revenge on is not the person who actually harmed you, right? Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's like if I go through a relationship and a woman treats me like crap, and I say, yep, that's what these hoes do. These women, all they do is they do this and they do that to you. So then I run into another woman who's nice to me, and I say, no, I'm gonna get you before you get me. Well, then I've gone from being the victim to being the perpetrator. Most perpetrators are victims. If you ask most child molesters were molested. Most murderers, dealt with somebody who tried to kill them too, right? A lot of people that harm other people are people that have been harmed themselves. So, or somebody who beats their kids, they were beaten when they were a kid, right? So effectively, what is interesting about this movie is the perpetuation of intergenerational trauma funded by Steven Spielberg to kind of say, okay, because Sophia has had to fight her whole life with her brothers. Remember that? She said, I had to fight my whole life, right? So Sophia grew up she's the big one. She grows up having to fight her whole life with her brothers, with her daddy, with all these men. Well, what's she doing when she gets mad at a man? Pop, right? She's out punching people, right? Now we're cheering this on because we're like, yeah, that's her regaining her power, reclaiming her power. No, that makes her a bastard because there are some men that don't need to get punched. There's something like Harpo brings her a cup of tea, and what does she do? She says, this is cold, and she throws it in the water. If a man does that, he's an abusive man. He's a terrible person. So abuse is not excused by the fact that you were abused before, male or female. There's not, there's something about, I gave a speech when my brother got married. I was the best man, and he was the best man at my wedding. We're very, very close. And when I gave the speech at his wedding, I didn't know what to say, so I made it real simple. You know what I said? I said I was standing there and I was holding a toast, and there was a lot of his friends. They were all like younger than me, and I said, if I was to give advice on how to have good relationships with other people, I would make it real simple. Don't be an asshole. Just don't be an asshole. If you're nice to other people, good people will be nice to you. And if somebody isn't nice to you, then that means that that's maybe somebody that you should avoid, somebody that should not be in your space. They don't deserve you. They don't deserve you. The worst thing you can do, if you're a nice person, how many of you consider yourself to be a nice person? Give me a yes in the chat if you are a nice person, or if you've ever been criticized for being too nice. See, your problem is that you're too nice. You're too nice to these niggas, right? Or whatever, right? Anybody go through that where you're accused of being too nice? Give me a yes in the chat. All the nice people, raise your hand. Okay, so here's the thing. The worst advice I can give you, if you're nice and someone hurts you, the worst advice I can give you is, well, you're too nice. So what does that mean? That means I'm asking you to give a trauma response. I'm asking you to come out of character and to become a bastard, just like the rest of the world. Now your kindness, which made you special, that was your superpower before. That's what made you a gift from God to the world. That's what made you an asset to the universe. You've depleted your own kindness. You've now pushed that to the side. So what? So you can be an asshole like everybody else? So you can fit in? Well, that's number one. That's not going to make you feel better, number one. And then number two, so you're not helping anybody now. Now you're just another asshole going through life traumatizing people. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. But you don't see it, right? Because most people, I kid you not, I have talked to men who have abused women, who have punched women, hit them, all that. And every single time, I swear to God, every single time that man defines himself as the victim, he talks about what somebody else did to him. Maybe it's his mom, starting with his mama, or what these women do, or whatever. And I'm hearing this. I'm hearing that maybe his heart was broken or whatever. So now he's turned into this horrible person, right? And I'm just going to tell you, that's not how you heal. That's not how you make a community better. And it sucks. It's really hard. It's really hard to be a nice person in the black community. I mean, black men, we're not even supposed to smile in a picture. People make fun of me because I smile. When I got married to my wife, I took a picture. Willie D was my homeboy, and Willie was in the wedding, and I took a picture with me and Willie and my wife, and I'm smiling, I'm cheesing because I'm like, I just married the most beautiful woman in the world, and you have no idea how many times I was called a simp and a punk and everything else by these men who think black men ain't supposed to smile in a photo, that somehow smiling makes you weak. No, I want to smile. I've worked hard on my dental work. I like smiling because I want to be happy. I want to be a good person. I want to live a good life. I don't want to have to be banging over breakfast and ready to fight at the drop of a hat. I mean, I can fight. Yeah, I'm a fighter. I ain't scared of nothing. Nothing scares me. Very few things. I can't think of hardly anything that scares me. But man, I want to be in a space where people can be nice to each other. You know, my best friends are people that I know are nice people. You know, I like to be in spaces with other people that are considered to be too nice or pushovers or whatever, because I'm not going to push you over. You won't push me over, you know? And I personally think that when you watch a movie like Color Purple, all you're really getting is more of the same damn gender war that's been destroying our families since slavery. They're literally telling you, the message in the movie is, if you're a woman and you don't want men to mistreat you, you got to be an asshole. You have to either be like Suge Avery, the big drunk ass hoe who like just does whatever she wants and just disrespects people, right? You give her breakfast, Suge doesn't like it, so she throws the tray out. Y'all remember that scene where she throws the tray at the wall and everybody thinks that that's so adorable. It ain't adorable. It makes you an asshole. As a man, if my wife brings me breakfast and I say, bitch, these eggs are burnt, hoe, and I throw the tray out into the hallway, that does not make me an admirable human being. There's nothing appealing or attractive about that behavior. If a man treats you like that, you would leave him. You should. Why would you love a man who clearly doesn't respect you enough to even say thank you for the breakfast, even with your burnt ass eggs? I still appreciate it, right? Like, really? There's nothing like so I think about this, right? And I think, man, so you're just kind of saying to women, young women, by the way, don't be a nice person, because these dudes will walk all over you. And if you run into a mean man, just be meaner than the man. Be like Sophia and punch him out, knock him the hell out. That does not make things better for anybody. I say a better response is this, and I'm gonna give you my little Uncle Boyce take. I hope it's okay if I share this. I know we go into the financial stuff, but sometimes I got to go into life, and I hope it's okay. I hope it helps somebody. And if you could, please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe if you haven't done it yet. And I should let you guys know, we do Powernomics training. We're actually going to meet tonight. We're going through Dr. Claude Anderson's books. The class is totally free. If you want to join us, just go to blackkeystogreatness.com. That's blackkeystogreatness.com. Also, this podcast is on Spotify. You can follow me on Spotify. Just look it up. I would appreciate it if you all could go follow, because it's hard to build Black-owned independent media. Stuff like this doesn't get funded. You know, they'll fund ignorance, but they won't fund stuff like this, and it's okay. We'll figure it out. But your help is really, really valuable and appreciate it. Also, I am doing a 30-day economic consciousness class. And for 30 straight days, it takes 30 days to form a new habit. So what we're doing is we're going to fill out this reflective journal I created called 30 Days to Black Wealth and Power. And we're going to meet every single morning at 10 a.m. for 30 straight days. And each day we're going to go through one of the economic consciousness questions, and you'll fill out this journal. And by the time the 30 days are up, you will have an economic plan that will move you and your family forward. So if you'd like to join us, the fee for the class, if you want all the recordings and stuff like that, is $299. But you can actually get in for free if you just get a copy of the book, and you can see the live trainings for free. That doesn't give you access to the recordings, but if you just want to come live for free, just go to drboycebooks.com and get a copy of the book. Just search for the words 30 Days to Wealth and Power. There's a search box at the top. And if you search for the book, 30 Days to Wealth and Power, you can actually get a copy of the book, and anybody who has a copy of the book can actually join for free. Okay. All right. So let me just close. Let me wrap up this conversation with something that's more practical in terms of my assessment, right? So we talked earlier about how one thing I don't like about the message of The Color Purple is it kind of says to Black men and Black women that that when you run into toxic men, you should either get away from most Black men, you know, maybe go date you a Suge Avery or something like that. You should punch them back like Sophia did, or you should just do whatever the hell you want, which means engage in a lot of irresponsible behavior, and Suge's character was just kind of a jerk and alcoholic and whatever, right? Um, I think all that's wrong and inappropriate. I really do. I think that this idea of us either getting away from each other, like what, so dating a white man is going to make your life better, or dating a woman will make your life better. Okay, whatever. Um, I think a better approach would be to say that if you are a good person and you find yourself mistreated by a bad person, love yourself enough. It starts with self love. Love yourself enough to set standards in terms of what you deserve and the kinds of people that you should let into your life, right? And when you let those people into your life, treat those people well. Don't give them your worst, give them your best. And I found that that's a better approach. I like the idea of being nice to the people around me, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm very picky about the people that I let around me. I don't let a lot of people around me because I don't want to be traumatized. I don't want to be mistreated. I don't want to be stepped on. But at the same time, I don't want to have to constantly walk around with my dukes up either. I don't want to feel like I have to fight the people around me. So ultimately, this is my belief. So I think also, if you've been traumatized, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of healing. I encourage you, go see that therapist. There's so many traumas that we have that we don't even realize were traumatic. Like if your father was not there when you were a kid, not there waking you up every morning, sending you to school, that's a lot of people say that's very traumatic. It's just like, imagine if your mother wasn't there every day. That would be very traumatic. We understand that trauma, but because we're so accustomed to fathers not being there, we just think that that's not a big deal. No, that's a big deal. That affects you. The other thought too is, when you're talking about just relationships in general and how to have healthy relationships, there are a lot of generational curses that have to be broken. I think for men, I think getting used to the fact that women have changed is very important for us as men. Learning how to work through your issues, like in terms of dealing with your jealousy or your insecurities, maybe your relationship with your mother if it wasn't so good. Learning how to be a man, like what a man needs to do in order to have what he wants in his life. All this sort of training and healing has to occur for men. And I think for women, what I find is the biggest problem for women is that women, y'all are just told not to listen to men. I get really irritated when I watch a movie like Color Purple, and every single woman was pretty much okay, a decent person, but the men were heavily flawed. And they also created the false narrative that every problem that a woman has is the fault of a man. And the way that translates into society, in my opinion, is you will hear women that will talk about themselves as if their own shit does not stink. Like it's the men. The men do this and the men do that, and the men are like this and the men are like that. It's like, well, what about you? Accountability has to be a two-way street. And so when everything bad is sort of being thrust onto somebody else, that means you yourself aren't taking accountability. Don't tell me to take accountability until you've taken accountability. And I don't think a lot of people do that. I really don't. I don't think a lot of men or women do that. Right? Why? Because you live in a world where it's easy to just go around and blame other people for your problems. No, you are the common denominator. You are the only person who is always there in every situation that you've ever experienced in your life. So I would encourage you to do that search inside. Find the areas where you're not quite where you want to be, and work on that. Work on that as hard as you worked on that bachelor's degree. Work on your healing as hard as you worked to get that job. Spend as much time making yourself a better person as you spend serving the corporate plantation, or going to that university, or going to church and serving the pastor and all that. Take care of you. Make you into a better you. And I guarantee you that if you make you into a better you, you'll be more satisfied with your life, and also you'll be able to do better for the people around you. Like, you'll literally be an asset to those around you. So be an asset, right? If you do that, I think things will work out for you. That's my 2 cents. That's my belief. All right. And again, I'm not here to crap on the movie The Color Purple. I thought it was actually well done. I just didn't like the narrative. All right. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. Hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Tonight, we're going to have Powernomics training. If you want to join us tonight, just go to blackkeystogreatness.com, and you can join for free. That's blackkeystogreatness.com. Also, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. And also, don't forget, this podcast is on Spotify, so you can find me on Spotify. Just look up Boyce Watkins. All right.